everyone, and welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am starting to lose my voice, but I'm your host, Adam Cousins, for yet another NWA special. And we wouldn't be able to have an NWA special if my first guest, to my left of my screen, wasn't here this evening. She's remarkable. She's lovely. She's an NWA queen. She is inside the ropes crew. She is a ring announcer, a timekeeper, and she also ferries wrestlers around when they come into the UK. Good evening, Fiona. How are you?
I am very well, Adam. How are you? It's nice to be back again. It's good to see you.
You're always welcome on the show, as I already said. But Fiona, it wouldn't be an NWA special without you. You went to bat for us to get the guys to come on. We've had Jeremiah on, we've had Sal on, we've got AJ on his birthday by the pool, which I'm going to get slightly worried about by the day. But why don't you give us the guest today?
Okie dokie. This evening's guest is none other than the incredible Anthony Lucassio, also known in NWA as the wonderful Danny Deals. Good evening, Danny. Nice to see you, or Tony, or whatever you want us to call you tonight.
Yeah, you can call me Deals because it's shorter than that it's shorter than and you don't want to butcher the name. Okay, so it gets butchered all the time. Look, Fee, we're matching. It was like we messaged each other.
I feel really out of place this evening. I've got the Hitting the Turnbuckle merch, which you can't get anywhere.
Well, you've got to have it. You've got to have it.
Exactly, but maybe what we'll do, Dan, is we'll get a load shipped over to you, and you can do it for us on the NWA stuff and sell our stuff as well for a cut, of course.
Okay, I'll do a crazy Eddie.
Yeah, you do a crazy Eddie. Let's just talk wrestling in general. We'll segue to NWA shortly, because I've watched that. I watched Power today, funnily enough, on my lunch. I went onto YouTube and watched it. But let's just talk wrestling business in general. I was just talking to a UK promoter who we're doing some stuff with, and we think at the moment it is probably in a massive boom period again. I mean, when you come over here, like today, AEW put on their sales for All In yesterday, and they topped 45,000 now for Wembley, which is nearly half full. That's just in pre-sale tickets. NWA just come back from Australia, or still in Australia even. And
they're back.
They're back now, so they're back from Australia. Yeah. But wrestling business as a whole at the moment is, I think, is absolutely booming. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah. I think it's because there's a lot of options. It's funny, Double J had predicted this back in like 2014. Everybody thought he was crazy. But like, I think it's just because there's more flavors of ice cream too than there used to be.
Absolutely.
And streaming and digital and a lot of stuff have opened up a lot. But no, I recall a time when I broke in on the independents in the mid 2000s. Yeah, it was it was a very serious downtime for the business. Indies were horrible. Like indies are even good now.
Yeah.
Like then they were just awful. You drive, 200 miles on a Tuesday for $20 or in front of,
and
15
2 men and a dog in a field somewhere.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of stuff that we did back then that there's like zero record of. It's just in our memory. Even like some NWA affiliate shows I worked for, like nobody. That's why sometimes I see people go, well, the NWA today is not like, it's like a buddy. Well, you didn't care 15 years ago either, because it was in a rough shape at that time. You should have seen some of the stuff we were doing then. But no, I just think there's a lot of options, and it always helps if there's more than one major, major company. It kind of opens up underneath more. I worked for TNA for a long time, and a lot of people they just never. England loved us, the UK loved us, but but a lot of other people, it felt like, never really would give us any support. So we never got to a certain level. And then once you lose the big TV deal, then it kind of they're back on track now. But you know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. It's always better when there's more options. It's always better. I feel
exactly that. We can't get enough of it over here. I mean, as I said, I managed to watch it today via YouTube, which is the streaming sites that come out today, and we can now watch anything pretty much. But Fiona, we were limited in the UK growing up, wasn't we?
I didn't. Well, that's it. I didn't. When I was younger, child of the 80s, early 80s, like I literally had 3 TV channels, and that was it. And there was no cable, there was no Sky. Wrestling kind of came on a VHS tape initially for me, or in a magazine. So for a long time, when I was a little kid, particularly American stuff, I just couldn't get hold of it. I literally had World of Sport on a Saturday afternoon, and that was it.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock on a Saturday. I mean, it started it was pretty much on its way out when I was born. I'm 84, so but Sky Guy come along, in 1989, I think it hit.
Yeah, thereabouts.
I got it, I think, in the 90s. So my first memory of wrestling, and it is the WWE, my first memory of wrestling was like a WrestleMania 6, you had Jack Tunney on one side, you had Hogan in his vest that he rips off, and you had the Warrior in a bomber jacket and makeup, and he was like, what,
what the hell is this?
Yeah, it was like this, because you see like he used to just wear these spandex and his little armbands, didn't he? And now he was in his bomber jacket and a t-shirt with his paint on and his hair. But my sort of first matches that I used to watch when I was growing, obviously you had the main events and you had the Hogans, and I used to be a big fan of Texas Tornado and Kurt Hennig. I love
Kurt Hennig. Yeah, Kurt Hennig. I always liked Kurt Hennig a lot.
Yeah,
and when I was in, I mostly grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but I lived a few years in Naperville, which is like 40 minutes to the west of Chicago. So that was like AWA territory at the time. So I remember seeing Kurt Hennig there first, and then he went to the WWF. And I was always a fan of Kurt Hennig. He was so good in the ring. Him and, there's people like him and Eddie Guerrero to me that they're so smooth. It looks like everything comes so effortless. You know what I mean? And Hennig was such a great seller. I always preferred the villains as a kid anyway. There was always so much more depth to them. Especially in the 80s, there was more depth to them. There was more, they could do more cool stuff and not be like,
That one, so AWA.
And I like the managers obviously too, so.
Oh, you had was it Bobby Heenan? Was he a manager in the 80s? Yeah, Bobby.
Oh yeah.
And Corny. Yeah. He was a
Yeah, Heenan, and I always thought Sherry Martel was underrated too as a manager.
She terrified me. I was totally scared of her growing up.
Yeah, she was really good, and I liked Paul Lee Dangerously a lot too. Prior to ECW days, when he was in WC, the cordless phone.
Yeah, the cordless phone,
the big Zach Morris phone. Yeah.
Who was the man? What was he called? What was the team called? That he managed?
Dangerous Alliance.
Dangerous Alliance. Yes. His cell phone. And did he have a woman with him as well? I don't know.
Well, Medusa was with him for a little bit. My arch rival, Medusa.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe we'll get to that one later.
We certainly will. Well, it kind of cuts across to NWA nicely. So I pretty much got a lot of my NWA stuff from Fiona, because she's constantly posting. Like she's like, oh, I'm watching NWA tonight in her bed or on a sofa or wherever she was, and you could see Tim Storm and a couple of the other guys there on the telly. So I started getting into
that's Timmy Thunder, by by
Timmy Thunder and Joey G.
That's their new names.
That's the new name. Got it. I was so I need to look at the roster, because and the first two words that come out of my mouth were "holy shit," because I looked at these guys and the girls on the roster, and it was like I was going through, and you had like Chris Adonis, underrated, EC3 didn't get an opportunity really to shine when he should have done. Tyrus is like money. He can do anything. It's not. I don't mean there's one character that he can't pull off brilliantly, whether it was a dancing one or a serious one or whatever he does. And
what about Tom Latimer, one of your countrymen?
Exactly. I was going to get into it. Exactly the thing. But I just think and I was talking to Matt Impact about it, and their roster is kind of the same. But there's just so much. You've got this balance, I think, of you've got the experience heads there, you producers, and people like Medusa, you pointed out, and you've got so much there, and then you've got this talent that I always think underutilized, underrated, or even potentially just for whatever reason it just didn't happen for them elsewhere, and they're getting it now, and it's great to see NWA thriving like it is. Do you agree that the talent roster there is now at a stage where you've got this, I think, unique blend?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have to have, to me, wrestling's like a circus. You have to have multiple flavors of ice cream, as Dr. Tom would say, right? I just think you have to have a little bit of everything. Everything can't be one thing. You know what I mean? You got to have a little bit of everything. There's a little mismatch there, and I think we have a pretty good mix of. There's not a lot of. You're not going to see the same match back to back to back. You know what I mean? That's cool, but you got to have. You got to have different stuff. You got to have some humor. You got to have brawling. You got to have high flying. You got to have, whatever it is, and whoever's doing it. And characters is what draws, people. What drew a lot of people to wrestling in the first place, and what drew me to it was characters. So think characters are as important, if not more important, than the work rate in the ring. I mean, the matches got to be good too, but you know what I mean. Like, I think the characters really draw. That's what people connect to, is a lot of times is a character. If you look at the people who have been the most over at some point, you know.
Yeah, exactly. One of the characters I saw today is it Yarbo the Clown?
Yeah.
He's going against like Ricky Morton next week, and I was like, oh my god, you get two polar opposites.
He's kind of new to the crew too, so I wasn't that familiar with him. And he's pretty
been
wild.
around for a while though, hasn't he? Like,
he has,
I hadn't heard of him, but
yeah. I mean, I think I've seen him before, like not like a full match, but I mean, I think I was like sort of aware of him, but that was the first time I had, because I was at the commentary table, so I watched the whole thing, because there are times where, you know, I do, whether, you know, me or and Plunkett or Alex have a match together a lot of times, but I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes too. So a lot of times I don't even see the show till it airs. And then it's like I'm watching it for the first time too. So this time was different. I saw every single match all the way through, you know, and it was he's different.
Definitely is. Fiona,
say the least.
Fiona, what was it that drew you to NW? I mean, I like the surroundings and the settings of it. It obviously takes you back to the old school.
Yeah. I love the kind of TV. I love the studio vibe of it. But one of the, and I've said this before, I'm not hiding it, one of the things that drew me to NWA was the time. Like, I have a busy life. I've got kids. I work a full-time job. I've got other stuff to do. I don't have time to sit and watch a 2.5 3-hour show. Yeah. And I love the fact that it's short, sharp, and sweet, and to the point. There's not a lot of filler. There's loads of action in it. And I love that it's literally just an hour of my time every week that I can go, do you know what? I want to watch this, and I'll put an hour aside for it, and I'll watch it, and I'll put the half hour aside for USA on a Saturday. But it was really good in terms, particularly the first season of Power. A few of the guys I knew from the UK. Obviously, you had Nick, you had Tom. So for me, it was like, oh, I know these guys. Like, so you've already got an affinity with them. Yeah. And so it was really important for me to go and check them out and support them and see how they were getting on and stuff like that. And then just kind of fell in love with everybody. And now they can't get rid of me, can you? Really?
No, they can't. But you've been out there as well. So what's it like? Obviously, I can only go by when I've been to see. You know, I've been to see like the One Pro Wrestling's over here that you was a chauffeur for and the talent for, and I've been to like WrestleManias and Raws over in the States. What's the atmosphere like at an NWA show? Because I've never been there. I'd like to go, but I've never actually experienced it live. What's it like?
So my first trip was last year out to the Crockett Cup in Nashville, which was amazing. I don't know what the crowd size was. It was fairly decent, fairly sizable. And to have teams at the time like the Briscoes and things like that there, the crowd was electric for the Cup. It was absolutely phenomenal. And you had Matt Cardona there last year and things like that as well. So that was really, really good. The TV tapings are a lot smaller and it's a lot more intimate. But for a small crowd, they're rowdy, they're loud, they know who they like, they know who they don't like. And I think I quite like the smaller venues for the TV tapings because of that atmosphere. You almost feel like, you do feel like you're part of the show. You feel like you're involved. I mean, for example, the last season before 312, which was filmed in Tampa, I'd gone over for that pay-per-view. And I think there was the street fight, and it was Aaron Stevens versus I'm having a mental block.
Rush's, I don't remember. I sent him out the curtain.
It was Rush's Rush Freeman's little brother.
Rolando.
Yeah, Rolando and a total mental block there. Rolando and Aaron Stevens had a street fight that left the studio, and so we couldn't see what was going on. But then Joe was like, come on, get out your seats, come and have a look. So we're all like crowded around the commentary booth and crowded around Kyle at his monitor and everything and getting to see it all. So you really feel like you're part of you really feel involved with it. And the roster and everybody they're all so friendly and they all kind of G you on to get in it. So yeah, I love the live events, they're fab.
Yeah,
I like the throwback studio style wrestling, which is some of the first wrestling I ever saw anyway was studio.
Yeah.
When we got cable and TBS and the Georgia, we used to get the Georgia before the time slot was bought out. And it was, maybe 100 people, two sides of the ring, podium right there, So.
Yeah.
It was so good. I love that. I love the whole sort of old school atmosphere of it. Because I've seen it when I was obviously. I think obviously Fiona, we never saw it growing up, but we obviously could see it now. And I've seen.
Yeah.
I remember like Jim Cornette and there with the Midnight, and they were going off. Probably more WCW than WA at that point, but same sort of principle was the studio and that. And it is it felt like a really intimate setting for wrestling. And I do like sometimes, as you mentioned, the smaller crowds. You can feel them a lot more, Tony, maybe. Am I right in thinking that you can probably feel the energy a bit more than a bigger crowd? Because sometimes, obviously, it travels up, doesn't it? Sound travels up. So if you've got a smaller building, it resonates more.
Yeah, you're packed a little bit closer. Yeah, if you dive to the wrong side, you might land on somebody. Yeah, it's very close. So it is a little bit more intimate because they're right there. You can hear everything. You know what I mean? So, yeah. You can definitely tell if they're being loud or not. And sometimes if you're in a bigger venue, it's hard to tell if you're in the ring or alongside it. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, it's a little more intimate, and it's kind of, it is what it is, right? It's a different flavor for somebody to check out. It doesn't look like everything else.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, we need different flavors of wrestling because we had so long, we just had the one. Probably after two.
See what I'm talking about? When my days working at TNA, we had one. No, but there was two.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we love. Hey, listen, we love TNA. We didn't want to see it go over here. We love TNA.
I mean, there was three technically, but for a long time, Ring of Honor was kind of a DVD company. Until they got, until a little bit later with Sinclair. But yeah, you know what I mean, though. But no, I dig what you're saying. Yes, it really felt like one, and then everybody was really trying to imitate the one almost. In a way.
Exactly that. And it was a shame for so long because there is so much talent out there that, doesn't get, well, now there's, as you say, there's more flavors, there's more avenues to get into wrestling.
There's more spots. Yeah, there's more spots. There was a time on the independents in like 08, 09, 10 where it felt like you had to sacrifice your firstborn to get a contract or get a look. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't a lot of places to go. You know what I mean? And so it just was, it was what. So at least there's different avenues for people to at least get showcased. If you know that you would go to this show and maybe get lost in the sauce, but if I go over here, I'm going to get more time. You know what I mean? Then that's where I need to go for now, and maybe I'll go there later. You know what I mean? Whereas before, it wasn't really an option.
Exactly. One of our guests that we've got on coming up, and I'm going to bring him up because I saw I think he was the main. Was he the main event today? No, I don't think he was. EC3. We got him coming on in a couple of weeks, and for me, he's got everything. And I don't know. I mean, well, probably politics and stuff like that, but we're not there. So I don't know why it hasn't worked. He did work in TNA when he went there. He done really well.
Sure.
He didn't work but for me, he seems to have everything needed to be, and he is a champion in NWA. I don't know. What do you think? Not necessarily the issues why it didn't happen, but he's there. He's great. But what went wrong? In a sense, he's gone right now for him. But I'm not sure. I don't know. It's hard to say because you don't know what happened in the back. Maybe it was timing. You never know. So I'm not really sure. He would probably be better to ask. I'll bring that up for sure. The other one I really liked was Chris Adonis. I know him as Chris. Obviously, when he was, he showed his hair.
I call him that half the time. Too.
But he's still called the masterpiece, though, right?
Yeah.
He's on today, so he's
still master alive.
I love his hair. His hair's great.
Like I get told when
it's not as good as mine.
It's not as good as yours, Steele. Not at all.
So not only am I like indifferent because I don't wear NWA, you guys have got hair. To be fair, this is chosen by me because I shave it myself.
That's cool. That's cool.
And I do blade sometimes. You wouldn't believe how much it bleeds as well. It does a lot.
No, I would. I did experiment at one point with when I was in high school. I had and this is in the 1880s. My high school years start in like 89.
Yeah.
And I had at the time I was hanging out around like the punk scene as it was. And a lot of the kids at shows, you know, the bands always look like metalhead skaters or slackers, but a lot of the kids at the shows, a lot of us ripped the British look with the spike leather jackets and the, you know, all that kind of stuff, Doc Martens. And so I had a mohawk. That's actually how I learned how to, I learned how to play music to Charge GBH, City Baby Attack Barrettes, actually. Even though I prefer the American stuff, I learned how to play to all the old early 80s UK stuff, Broken Bones, Discharge, etc. So like I had a big tall mohawk stuck off my head. And having thick hair, it was easy. But I did go through a period where I tried to shave it to bick it, you know, to get it like super smooth. And so I am aware of the cuts and the cuts that are very thin, but you'd be surprised what would make it burn like a son of a bitch.
Oh,
but, it's being that it was before cameras were invented, I think I have 2 pictures of myself looking like that. But
wow, we need some Fiona when you next go over there, try and find them. Yeah, exactly.
Have a look.
I think they're on my Instagram.
I'm gonna go look for that.
Yeah, they're pretty deep in there.
Yeah, before we segue off to play one of the games, when I started senior school, we called it over here, so we finished sort of primary school. I had a ponytail, so there is no evidence whatsoever to ever back that up. None. And if there is any, I'll find out and I'll burn it, because it is never. my sister, God rest her soul, she was a hairdresser, so I was the model. So whatever. When David Beckham was there and he had the curtains and he had the highlights, that was me. I was that. I was the friend when it was there, and then I gave up when I was 16. I said, "You're not using me anymore. This is coming off." And that was.
I'm going to search through your Facebook after this.
You won't see it, baby.
I would have thought you would have had like the Johnny Rotten look, the bright orange, spiky. No.
It was whatever was popular. I mean, it was basically, if you ever watched soccer, as you guys call it in the States,
football. It's fine. I know what you mean.
David Beckham, whatever David Beckham's hair.
No, he was huge here too. He was
exactly.
Big here.
Galaxy, wasn't he?
Nobody watched it, but he was huge.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever his hairstyle was, I had. So you could just. Maybe on MySpace, Fiona. I think there may be a picture of me and Samoa Joe.
MySpace?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm old as well. Right.
Did you have the 2 little ponytails in the back, like Rick? No. Okay.
No. I'm going to get embarrassed. Carry on. So let's move swiftly on. So word association is a game that we play with all of our guests. We'll play it as well, Fiona. I don't know if I've said any of these before. If I have, you've got to change your answer. There's about 8. Just the first word, phrase that comes into your head when Z name is mentioned. We're going to start with Vince McMahon, of all people, today.
Pioneer.
He's
a pioneer. You know, when I was a young kid starting to watch wrestling, right when he had taken control, when he had bought the company. And he saw what cable TV was going to do to the business.
Yeah.
And he saw cable TV way ahead, because he was like 35. So he was the young guy. And everybody, you know, the older promoters thought he was a goof. He saw, you know, what cable TV saw would become pay-per-view. You know, he was way ahead of the game. And even with the characters, you know what I mean? Because I remember watching syndicated NWA shows, and there's Ted DiBiase, here's this guy, and then they would come in and there's still characters that are known as today, $1 Million Man. And I just think he had a vision. I didn't, you know, whatever. But as far as a businessman, I feel like he was a pioneer.
Yeah.
And it's really ultimately the reason, even the people who say that they hate that show, it's the reason that most people are even fans of the business in the first place.
Exactly that.
Yeah, because they just had the biggest platform.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Fiona, what do you want to say?
I'm just going to say Mr. Wrestling, because if it wasn't probably for Vince, I probably wouldn't have started watching WWE and Impact and TNA and NWA. So he is wrestling for me, basically. And
it was the gateway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you found what style you did like.
Yeah, what I liked after. Exactly.
I've written Maniacal Genius, because some of the stuff that, I mean, obviously he wasn't just on his own back in the day, but some of the stuff was amazing. And the feud with Austin, and even when I was growing up, like Hogan, and you touched on it about being pioneer. When they got bought out by Endeavor, I think it was Ari Ioane that said he saw cable before anyone saw cable. He saw pay-per-view before anyone saw and he saw direct-to-consumer before anyone saw direct-to-consumer, which is pretty much what you
the OTT streaming platform. The network. How did I forget?
Yeah, exactly that. Next one on the list, Raven.
Oh, Raven. He's a trip. I don't know. I actually took a trip with him one time.
Wow.
To a Legend show in Kentucky. And I had done a show with him in the Nashville vicinity, and it was me and another guy, and we were kind of involved in the match with him, and me and him didn't really see eye to eye on some stuff, you know. And then I was doing a Legend show in Kentucky, and this guy, the promoter, was like, "Hey, I'll give you an extra 50 if you pick up Raven and bring him." I said, "Sure." No. And before we got in the car, he goes, "Hey, I know you, don't I?" And I said, "Yeah, we did a show together before." And he was like, "Yeah, I thought so." But then we got along. But when we were driving, there's a lot of stuff. I picked up a lot of knowledge from him. You know what I mean? He's kind of a genius in a way. You know what I mean? But like he's really cool. And also at the Tampa tapings, he looked at my Deals outfit and he went, "That's heat." And I said, "Well, that's over. You know, I'm over with that." But yeah. Old Raven, yeah, he's a trip, but he's a cool dude, and he paid for everything on the way. He was maniacal about getting these scratch offs at every gas station. And I was like, this guy, you know what I mean? Because he'd be like, "Nah, not that one. No, let me try." But then he would hit on like 9 out of 10 of them. You know, he hit one for $100. He's like, "You hungry, kid?" It was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Go in here." You know, so yeah. But I learned a lot of knowledge when I was driving with him, just about different like philosophies on, stuff and about the business. So yeah, I'd say, I guess he's a genius, I guess.
Hey, you'll go again.
I'm gonna hold my hands up. I don't actually know much about him at all, really. I don't remember a lot from.
Yeah.
No.
The flop.
Not really, honestly. No, I really don't.
Yeah.
I think you've kind of stumped me with this one, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Well, you need to go back and watch. You got to go back and watch. What about Raven? What about me? You're not watching.
That's the thing about doing this, because they'll go, "Oh, well, this," and I'll go, "I don't really know." So I'll literally do a podcast, speak, and I'll go, "Right, I'm going to go and watch this. I'm going to go and watch this." So it's quite educational for me. So that's one to add on to the educate yourself list.
Go find you some Raven.
Yeah, I will.
I literally had like my word was knowledgeable. I've listened to some of these. I've obviously watched him as the WCW and WA. And I've watched some of these interviews as well, and the mind is just
that's what I'm saying. When we were driving, some of the stuff he was saying, I was like,
incredible.
I don't know why. How did I never see that before? Yeah,
exactly that. Next one may be a bit close. Homicide.
I love D. He's crazy. There it is. Crazy as hell. He's the best. Yeah, he's he's been wrestling since like the 90s. Like a lot of people don't realize that. Yeah, he started in like 93 or something.
How old is he? I'm intrigued. I don't actually know.
I think I'm older than him still. I mean, he might be at 40, but he's okay. He's I am older than him, in fact, but he's crazy. But he's a good guy. He's crazy. Don't get on the wrong side of him.
Well, that's kind of where I was going. Obviously, I've seen him wrestle on the shows before. I love watching him, but I think he might be slightly unhinged in the nicest possible way.
He won't wear a button-up shirt anymore. He started doing some agenting some matches.
Yeah.
And I remember I showed him. I said, "Here's how you roll up a paper. Here's how you act like you're listening when you're not," and all that. But he had a button-up shirt on. And I just joked to him. I said, "The boys will never trust you again." He said, "Oh, bro," and he took it off, and now he won't.
Oh, brilliant! I love it.
Outstanding. But Fiona, you never asked a bloke his age. We get it.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
We can't.
I mean, probably
he's younger than me. It's okay. It's fine. He's younger than me. It's all right.
Yeah. I actually, funny enough, my words are batshit crazy. So I think we've all got that.
Yeah. We're on the same way.
Shane Douglas.
The franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody thinks about that promo where he throws the belt down and does all that stuff, and I think he was underrated. He was a good promo. Honestly, I think of Shane is like when I did an indie show with him when we're both big Steeler fans, American football, and so every time I see him, even whether he remembers me or not, that's what we're talking about. So that's kind of what goes in my mind first is Steelers. I know it sounds crazy, but
no.
Yeah, great promo. For sure.
Do you know Shane Douglas?
Do you know him, Fee?
I know Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas was over here before the pandemic down for a company called Target Wrestling down in Carlisle. He wrestled at Target. I don't know masses about him either, but he was an absolute gentleman, and he was so good with the fans and stuff. Like everybody loved him. He had time for everyone. So yeah, He's a good guy in my books.
Well, I know you love the NWA, and he's famous for a promo where he throws the NWA belt down. So maybe you should go look that up.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, so that was
educational. That's what this is for.
I think that was when it was sort of going into the ECW days, wasn't it?
No, yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. My thing was, and you mentioned it, Tony, was underrated. I thought the guy had, again, he's got a great brain, but he was underrated. He's one of these guys, a bit like EC3, where he went to the bigger company, it didn't work for whatever, and he found success in like ECW, for argument's sake.
He was right for that product, that fit. Yeah. There are people sometimes that don't fit in certain places, and in other places they fit like a glove, and for one reason or another, it's just, that's why we need options.
Exactly that. We go back. Exactly, we do need options. Sting.
Old Sting. I was never a fan of Sting.
Oh, really?
Nice guy. I've met him. I helped him at a signing one time, and he wouldn't remember. But I was never, I'm not talking about the singer of the Police either. No, I mean, he was over. I mean, he was, but I was never like a huge, like I said, in the 80s when I was watching, anybody that was banging heads with like, Tully Blanchard and Flair and all them guys, I had no time for him. That's just how it was. But I mean, cool guy, over. But yeah, I was never a little Stinger.
B?
I am super fond of Sting. The story with Sting is that basically Sting is the reason I got into working with Inside the Ropes. Sting was our first tour in the UK, our first proper tour in the UK, and I wasn't working with Inside the Ropes. We'd only done a couple of one-off shows by this point. Sting was the first kind of full UK tour we did, and at the time Kenny had come to my local promotion where I was working and had said, look, is anyone off? Is anyone available to drive? And I was like, yeah, what's it for? I can do it. We're going on the road. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, who with? And he was like, Sting. I was like, I'm sorry, what? So I spent 7 days on the road with Sting, his wife Sabine, and his agent Steve. Just took them up and down the country, ran all the meet and greets with them, absolute superstar. And wind the kids up and say that actually that's your stepdad, because I got a photo. The kids came to the show in Glasgow. And there was a photo of me and Sting. It looks like a family photo. It literally looks like Malpaw and the Waynes. It's me, Sting, and the three kids. And it's like a proper family photo. If you put it in a photograph, it looks like a family portrait. So in the
countryside.
Yeah, totally. So for me, Sting is the catalyst for so much of my wrestling work that I've done. And that was like a way back in 2014, I think. Thereabouts. So I have a lot to thank him for.
Yeah. I will say I was never a fan, but I was really engaged in that late 90s story. That year-long story. It was probably the best story going at the time. Yeah.
I've got a reinvention because he reinvented himself so many times. There was the Surface thing, which was, the 80s.
He sure did.
Black and white, and then the WCW. Then in Impact, he was Joker, Sting, and I think recently on AEW, he'd done all of these personalities in a promo. Which was, but I think, and again, this is only rumors, we may be getting his last match in August with it. That's
you could.
AEW All In, potentially anyway, but we don't talk rumors. Jeff Jarrett was the next one.
Double J. Well, he's another visionary, like I said earlier. The way he had kind of predicted what was because something's happening here. You know what I mean? And I've worked for Jeff and with him a lot, and Jeff, he's sharp, man. He's always on. He's always kind of ahead of curve. Even if you look the way that the TNA was presented in like 07 with the X Division style, which is almost a normal style now, and the way the women were presented and things of that nature, and then Jeff's always kind of he just falls into the next thing. You know what I mean? Sure. You think it's done, and then here he is. And I'll tell you, it's never been in question, but anybody who thinks he can't work, go watch that Flair's last match, because he was the match. You know what I mean? He was the entire match. But Jeff, he's another one it's in his blood. He's third generation promoter. He's a visionary. I've definitely cast a lot of checks because of him. I worked for him at TNA, I worked for him at Global Force, at independent stuff, Music City Bowl we do every year here. So, I have you know, I very much like Double J. He's paid some bills for me. He's a good guy.
He is. He's not come to Inside the Ropes yet, has he? Has he not done anything?
We've done one-off shows with him, which I unfortunately wasn't able to attend. But I did catch up with him. He did ICW, I think it was Shug's House Party in Glasgow a couple of years ago. But I have one word for Jeff, and it's just guitars.
Guitars. Wow, he plays. Certainly uses them. I've actually got legendary because he's family. Legendary. Yeah. And because of what he has done for wrestling, as you mentioned, Tony, the Impact, the Global Force stuff. We got introduced to the X Division, which is, like you said, is the norm for a lot of wrestling now. But Jeff Jarrett, that put it into that category and got us introduced to it. So a legend.
Created a lot of opportunities and gave a lot of people some time to shine that wouldn't have got it elsewhere.
Well, you look at even like some of the greats now, like AJ Styles would never have got, if he wasn't for TNA, would never have got that platform to showcase what, we know he's great, but we never, I saw him before he went to TNA when actually won W, funnily, Fiona, when he come over here. But he wouldn't have, people like Samoa Joe even, the same.
Yeah. A former NWA champion in his own right. Multiple times.
He is. He certainly is. What a guy. Jim Cornette.
Heel, really. Hysterical, but like a heel. And I mean, even if I look at, he's chilled out a little bit, but a couple of years ago on his podcast, he was still being a heel manager from a podcast in his house. He was pissing off so many people. He almost did some of his best heel work doing that than he did when he was outside the ring. And but he's a wild man. I did a show with him one time. I think it was Ohio Valley, but he, it's just a hysterical cuss out. Like I used to ring it out, and this guy had traveled with Sean Schultz forever, right? And I would always ring announce him in the ring before the match would start, take the mic from the announcer. And, I did it, and I blew the levels. I didn't realize they had a kill switch on the thing. And if you went too high, and I remember we came in the back, and he was just like, Tony, your promo's going good. You're doing this, that. And you go, and you blew fucking levels. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you were like Vince introducing Aretha at WrestleMania, Queen of Souls. I was like, okay, sorry. He goes, no, it was good, but fuck. I was like, all right, So, well, you might have to bleep that. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No. I can say
it. You can cut that. But I mean, I just think of a heel. I mean, the amount of people that he's pissed off, even in recent years, just doing a podcast. I mean, heel. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah. See?
I would describe him as Marmite. Folk either love him or hate him, basically. He's so knowledgeable. Again, we did a show with him in London, and I could listen to him talk for hours. Might not necessarily agree with all the stuff that he says and his opinions, but I think he's a genius. I do think he's a genius. He's so knowledgeable. Yeah.
I actually, funny enough, I had Hill written down before he even got there, so you've taken my words, Tony. But I agree. Again, I could, as you say, I was gutted. I couldn't go to that show. I had a commitment that day that I couldn't attend Jim Cornette when I was gutted that I missed it.
It was a good show. It was him and JR, wasn't it? Yeah.
Him and JR. Yeah, it was. I wanted to go. Yeah, I was gutted that I didn't get a chance. I hope one day I get to see him, meet him personally, because I think he's fantastic. The last one on the list before we move on is your boss, Billy Corgan. Sorry. What? The Smashing Pumpkins.
Let's see. Billy is he's another one that's a visionary when you just look at his music, not even just the wrestling. You know what I mean? And I was never really a fan of the band, but I dated girls in the 90s, so I heard it all the time. And it's talking about making a lot from nothing. You know what I mean? Even putting that kind of stuff out before it was even popular, and then selling 30 million records. But I'd say cool. He's a cool boss. You know what I mean? So I knew before I worked at NWA, I knew that wherever he would go, I would have no problem working for him. Because I remember he came to the Broken Hardy stuff was only Jeremy Borash and it's Jimmy Long. So they got Ben Coyle and me. I did the least, but I was there. Billy came to the Delete or Decay one, and he was out there with us all night doing that. But the next morning, because the company was kind of like this at the time, and he made a joke about getting refunded on his rental, even though he was in the office. And I had rented this SUV to bring myself and Jimmy and Crazy Steve and some gear and Janice and some other stuff. And I said, yeah, I hope they get mine back too, because I could really use it, kind of. And he goes, let me know if you don't get it, which basically meant if you don't get it, I'll pay you back for it. And that's when I was like, well, I like that dude. I'll work with him anywhere he goes out, So I just think, yeah, I don't know. He's a cool ass dude. I mean, you still got to do your job and do it correct. But I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. See?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I mean, I guess he'd be another visionary, really, when it comes to the music side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may have covered him before last time. I just said Smashing Pumpkins, but the other thing I said, he's tall. He's way taller than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, first time I met him, I was like, damn.
I was like, whoa, you're quite large. Yeah, he's tall.
How tall is he? How tall is he?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's probably 6'4". 6'4", probably.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he's taller than, I remember thinking the same thing first time. And I said, damn, how tall is that mic stand? But tall. It's the same thing when I met, Drew McIntyre. I was like, Jesus Christ, but like he knows he's a giant. So he'll lean in to talk now.
Every time Drew comes home.
There you are.
Yeah, every time Drew comes home and he's at a show and I see him, I'm like, hi, Drew. And I'm literally, every time I'm like, Christ, you're tall. And he's like, Fiona, you say that every time.
Yeah. Well, at least he knows it and he leans in because he knows the people down here, we can't hear you. How you getting on?
Hello?
He's really, it's real. Yeah. I can't believe we almost made the whole show and then I went out and I dropped F-bombs like I said I wouldn't. It was the only
don't worry. It's not too. We've been worse on the show before, don't worry. I had to
not from me. Right. I'd like to see.
Yeah, asked the Cornette story, and it just.
No. That's absolutely
comes with the territory.
Yeah, you should have heard the Raw after WrestleMania review. I think there's more bleeps than that than anything else. We've done recently anyway. For Billy, I had the Smashing Pumpkins, but also I had the word thankful written down because I'm thankful that he created the NWA to give people another platform to wrestle and use another flavor.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
But we are fastly getting out of time, and we're not going to play Shot Clock, unfortunately, but that'll be for another show. Lastly, Tony, talk to us. Future of NWA. What can we look forward to seeing on the NWA? Where do you hope it goes? And who is one of the some of the underrated guys that perhaps people should keep an eye out for?
Well, of course, Alex Taylor and Jeremiah Plunkett. I mean, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Of course, them,
I hope Alex is on the mend soon.
He is. He's healing up. He's healing up. He had to fight off 14 guys at a bar. He didn't see the 15th, so he hurt his shoulder while he was over there in Australia. Drank too much of that stuff. Ran into the Wolf Creek guy, but I mean them for sure. I mean, there's a lot of young people, Kenzie Page,
she's so
people
good.
like that are, you know what I mean, that are kind of a place to do it. Again, thanks, Billy. Thrill Billy is another one. There's a lot of people. Kerry Morton, Joe Lonzo. There's a lot of young people getting like their first kind of run. I'm forgetting people, so I'm gonna stop naming them because I'm somebody back. I saw that damn thing you did with them UK people. You didn't say me. No, I just hope it continues to grow and it's another place and a platform for people who work backstage or work in the ring, who are cutting their teeth or maybe get one last run, or it's just another. It's another avenue. We've been doing, some international stuff, but a lot of stuff with the Pumpkins tour. I know there's some stuff in there. So, it's just kind of just growing it and being kind of weird and wacky. I mean, I guess I was always into punk music as a kid in the 80s. So, I mean, I guess we're kind of like the punk of the wrestling. We're kind of weird and a little but we have, it's some people, that's the flavor, that's the notes they want to hear.
Exactly. Listen, I hope one day we can get over here if they can come over.
I'd love to.
That would be.
It's too expensive to keep flying across the Atlantic to you.
It'd be great. Fiona, you're working. Well, you're working anyway, but you have a show tomorrow, right?
I do have a show tomorrow. Premier British Wrestling is in Beith tomorrow night. That's on Thursday. What's that? The 4th of May. Yeah, tomorrow, Thursday 4th in Beith. It's just a little 5-match card tomorrow night, but it should be fun, family friendly stuff. So that's tomorrow night, and then I'm pretty much off. I've got like a fortnight off. I'm so excited. Like, I love my shows, but I have worked solidly for probably about 7 or 8 weeks now, so I'm looking forward to having a little bit of downtime.
Nice. Come and take my place on the podcast. I'll run through our guests, and then we'll let Tony run through some of the NWA stuff that's coming up. So tomorrow, I'm back with a Dynamite review, but we're also meeting NXT UK Tag Team Champion Flash Morgan Webster. Tuesday the 9th, we've got British independent star Martin Stone joining us to start his resurgence, as he puts it. I'm looking forward to meeting him. On the 10th, we've got Brian Kendrick, Spanky, as he was called back in the day. On the 11th, we have two. We've got the Dynamite review, but we've got Bobby Fish, who I'm really looking forward to having a chat to. And one of the UK's biggest families in England is the Knight family, who you may know as Paige or Saraya from AEW. We've got her brother Zach straight after Bobby Fish coming on. That was announced today via Facebook conversation. The 18th, we've got Just Incredible. The 21st, Fiona, we are by the sea, or by the pool, shall we say, with birthday boy himself, AJ Kazana, to wish him happy birthday.
By the pool.
By the pool, yes, he said. He'll be by the pool. That was his words.
All right.
2 days later, we have another NWA talent and superstar, EC3. And the last one in May, I'm not going to go into June. There is a few booked in. The last one in May is a wrestling personality, a media personality, and he was the one that kind of ticked off CM Punk at the All In press conference that started all of that. Malarkey Nick Hausman will be on the show at the 31st of May. But Tony, NWA, what have they got coming up? And obviously we know it's 6:05 on YouTube, but what have they got coming up?
6:05, well, of course, the Crockett Cup is coming up early June. Doing the Crockett Cup. I know the NWA will be on, I believe, a lot of the Pumpkins dates in the summer, just much like they did in Australia. Of course, and right after that, you're probably going to roll in the 75. I'm making all kinds of new stuff and new deals for the Dealites, of course. I'm always doing that. And Saturday, actually, that's right. Saturday, Plunkett and myself and Alex are going to eliminate the Rock and Roll Express here in Portland, Tennessee. Yeah, it's over, guys. Get out of here. Ain't no more rock and roll. We're going to be the grunt. We'll be the Grunge Express. Something. So we're going to do that, and all kinds. And of course, on Mondays, the Deal Machine is always streaming. Sometimes you're there, Fee, sometimes you're not.
It's too late at night for me.
Yeah, it is. And then me and Gary might do something coming up. I don't know, but we'll see.
So everyone, keep your eyes on it.
All right.
NWA are on it. They're on YouTube, 6:05 on Tuesdays at 6:05. We've nearly got the days wrong. We're 11 o'clock our time, Fee. About 11 o'clock.
11:05 our time in the UK, and then USA on a Saturday at 5 p.m. as well.
There you go.
Our time, UK time, obviously. So you're getting it for breakfast, we're getting it for tea time.
We are indeed, and what an enjoyable.
That's it.
What an enjoyable moment that will be. Tony, it's been great. I love talking with the NWA guys. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for taking your time. Fiona, I could thank you all the time, and we are going to be doing this again very soon. You're always welcome to join us, whatever guest that we have. It doesn't have to be NWA, but it's a big help. But we love you on the show. We love what you've done.
Thank you for having me again.
You never have to thank. It's more us thanking you for doing everything that you've done for us, to getting these guys on and going to bat for us when you didn't have to. And we very much appreciate it. Tony, we've appreciated you coming on as well. Guys, we've wrapped it up today. It's nearly 9 o'clock UK time. I can go and put my pajamas on and rest my voice tomorrow. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Until next time, good night.